This case has haunted me since I first read about it as a kid. 115 people erased from history, leaving only the cryptic word Croatoan. It's the ultimate cold case, a mystery that feels as personal as it is unsolvable. I've spent years digging through the evidence, from lost letters to buried clues. Let me tell you what happened. The tree. That's what you'd see first. Not the fort, not the houses, not the people. Just the tree. A single, stripped trunk, its bark carved like a wound that had already healed into a scar. The word Croatoan cut into the wood. No cross. No sign of distress. No bodies. No blood. Just that word. And the silence. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums until you can hear your own heartbeat. Governor John White stood there in August of 1590, 3 years after he'd kissed his daughter and granddaughter goodbye, and he knew. He knew before he even stepped foot on the sand. Something was wrong. Think about that moment. The salt spray on his lips. The sun bleaching the sky a pale, indifferent white. The creak of the ship's hull behind him, groaning like an old man. He'd come back from England with supplies. He'd been delayed by war with Spain. 3 years. 3 years of imagining his family safe, waiting for him. He stepped onto the beach at Roanoke Island, and the first thing he noticed was the absence of smoke. No cooking fires. No voices. The fort they'd built with their own hands, it was still there. The palisades stood. But the gates were open. And inside, the houses had been dismantled. Stripped. Like a skeleton picked clean by birds. Chests had been dug up and rifled through. Books, maps, armor scattered and rotting in the salt air. Iron tools rusting in the grass. And no sign of a struggle. No broken weapons. No bones. It was as if 115 people had simply unzipped themselves from reality. You have to understand who these people were. They weren't soldiers. They were families. Mothers, fathers, infants. A woman named Eleanor Dare gave birth to a daughter on that island just weeks after they landed in 1587. Virginia Dare. The first English child born in the New World. Imagine that night. The lantern light flickering against the wooden walls. The women whispering prayers. The men standing watch, muskets cold in their hands. The baby crying. A new life, in a place that felt like the edge of the map. They had hope. They had corn and beans planted. They had a treaty with the local Croatoan tribe. They had a future. And then John White sailed away for supplies, and the future turned into a question mark that no one has ever been able to erase. The search party spread out across the island. They found the word Croatoan on the tree, and they found the letters CRO carved into another post nearby. White had told them before he left, if they were forced to move, they should carve the name of their destination into a tree. And if they were in danger, they should carve a cross. There was no cross. No cross. That detail should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Because if they weren't in danger, where were they? The Croatoan tribe lived 50 miles south on a different island. The colonists had a boat. They could have sailed there. But the boat was gone too. And so were the heavy iron bars they'd used for fortification. You don't carry iron bars 50 miles on foot. Not with children. Not with a newborn. Not without a reason. A storm was coming. The sea was turning gray and violent. White had to make a choice. He could sail south to Croatoan Island, or he could return to England for more men. His ship's captain refused to stay. The wind was rising. The anchors were dragging. White looked at that tree, at that word, and he ordered the crew to raise the sails. He left his daughter. He left his granddaughter. He never saw them again. And that's the part that breaks something in you. He was the governor. He was the grandfather. He could have pushed harder. He could have demanded one more day. But the weather doesn't care about your grief. The storm came, and the ship went, and the mystery stayed. Now, let's talk about what doesn't add up. The houses were dismantled. Not burned. Not destroyed. Dismantled. That takes time. That takes intention. Someone walked through that fort and pulled apart their own home, board by board, nail by nail. Why? To carry it somewhere? To build something else? If they were attacked, you'd see fire. You'd see broken things. You'd see bodies. There were none. And the Croatoan tribe, White had met them before. They were friendly. They spoke a version of Algonquian. They traded. If the colonists had gone to them willingly, they would have been safe. But here's the cold knot in the story. Years later, when English settlers returned to the area, they heard stories from other tribes about a group of white people who had been absorbed into a village. They said the settlers had been living with the Croatoan for decades. They said some of them had been killed in a raid by a rival tribe. But no one could prove it. No one found the bones. No one found the iron bars. No one found Virginia Dare's grave. Let's talk about the theories. The most common is that the colonists simply integrated. They ran out of supplies. The Croatoan took them in. They married. They had children. Their bloodline mixed with the tribe, and over generations, the English names faded into the soil. It sounds peaceful. It sounds like a happy ending. But here's the problem: the colonists were not starving when White left. They had enough food for 2 years. They had weapons. They had a blacksmith. They had a priest. And the Croatoan were not a large tribe. 50 people. Maybe 60. You don't hide 115 Europeans in a village of 60. You don't lose their language, their tools, their iron. Not in one generation. Not without leaving a trace. Another theory: they tried to sail back to England on their own. The boat was small. The ocean is huge. They could have capsized in a storm. They could have been lost at sea. But then why dismantle the houses? Why pack up the fort? You don't take your walls with you when you're leaving by boat. You leave them standing. You leave them as shelter for the next wave of settlers. Unless you're not leaving by boat. Unless you're taking the wood to build something else. A raft. A shelter on the mainland. A signal fire. And then there's the dark theory. The one that keeps historians up at night. The one that involves a different tribe. The Secotans. They were not friendly. They had been attacked by the English before, in 1585, when a different group of soldiers burned their village and killed their chief. Revenge is a slow fire, but it burns hot. If the Secotans had found the Roanoke colony, they wouldn't have left a cross on a tree. They wouldn't have left anything. But they would have left marks on the bones. And no bones were found. Not one. 115 people don't disappear without a single bone unless someone buried them. Or unless someone moved them. In 1607, when the Jamestown settlers arrived, they were told by the Powhatan chief that the Roanoke colonists had been massacred. He said his people had killed them on the orders of their own leader. He said there were houses made of stone and wood, but the people were gone. They searched. They found nothing. But here's the detail that gets under your skin: the Jamestown settlers also reported seeing a few Native Americans with light hair and gray eyes. Not common. Not impossible. But enough to make you wonder. Enough to make you look twice at old tribal stories about a village of ghost people who spoke a strange tongue and then vanished into the trees. Today, the lost colony is a tourist site. You can walk the grounds. You can see the reconstructed fort. You can buy a postcard. But if you go at dusk, when the tourists leave and the wind picks up, you can feel it. That absence. That space where 115 people used to be. The trees are older now. The shoreline has changed. But the word Croatoan is still there, in every book, in every documentary, in the back of your mind. It's the only clue. It's the only thing they left. And it doesn't tell you where they went. It only tells you where they weren't. So here's the question that follows you home. If you were John White, standing on that beach, staring at that tree, knowing your daughter and granddaughter were out there somewhere, would you have left? Or would you have stayed, and let the storm take you too? Because that's the real horror. Not the vanishing. Not the mystery. It's the fact